Hi there, welcome to the channel and welcome back if you're a return viewer. You're watching the Crash It Review of Books and I'm your host Kerry. Today we have some dramatic lighting here. Sorry, I couldn't position the camera in a very good place and get a neutral background at the same time, so I'm going to be squinting a bit because the sun is streaming in the window there right into my face. I could have waited to do this another hour or two and get the sun out of the way, but well, I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference to the video quality, really. So today it is the September book haul, another bumper crop of books, both used and new, from a variety of sources. Now, I think the number of books is going to start going down again as I start to try and save some more money. The old bank account's been taking a hit lately for a variety of reasons, and we really need to start saving those pennies towards the latter part of the year, I think. Anyway, so it is September the 29th. I had to think about that. Nearing the end of September, so near the end of the month, I like to do these book haul videos, just to look at the books I've picked up and a little bit about them. Some of the books this month I know more about than others, and they will become very obvious shortly. So let's get on with it. Okay, first up I've got a selection from RTB Books in Wellington. They have a great website. If you're a local New Zealander, you can get books shipped to you. I'm pretty sure they probably ship overseas as well, but I'm not sure if the price would justify that. Anyway, 3 books from them this time. The first one, Quentin Crisp's The Naked Civil Servant. Now, this is one of those books you always hear about and see referenced and quoted and talked about, but I've never actually quite gone all the way to read Quentin Crisp's story, and it is apparently quite a story to behold. Now, Quentin Crisp was probably most famous for being a out gay man, flamboyantly queer, whatever you'd like to call it, about almost 100 years ago, when that type of thing was basically not all that well accepted by society. Some would say it still isn't, but you know, his main message was be yourself. He had like coloured hair, painted nails, all types of things which made him stick out in society at that time, the 1920s, 1930s onwards, and went to court several times over various things and always managed to talk his way out of receiving sentences and what have you. And he is seen as one of those lovable English eccentrics, but he was quite an interesting fellow. And this book was written years and years ago and kind of disappeared. And then in the 1970s, they put out, I think it was first a documentary about him, and then there was a movie starring John Hurt, based on this book, The Naked Civil Servant, and that kind of kicked off interest in Quentin Crisp again, and the book was reprinted, and he went on in his later years to write at least two more sequels, memoirs, and he became quite a raconteur and commentator, and everyone went to him for a quote about the issues of the days, and he had quite an acerbic wit, and everyone loved his comments. And I believe he died from a heart attack in 1999, so just under a century old, I believe, at the time. So he had a good innings, and apparently there's a lot of revisionism going on about him. Was he really such a great spokesperson for the queer community or the gay community? He didn't, at the end, he didn't even consider himself gay. He thought he would have been transgender if he had the opportunity. Well, that's what Wikipedia says anyway. Anyway, like I said, it's one of those books you always hear quoted. I mean, there was even a Sting song, Englishman in New York, about him. Yeah, so that is The Naked Civil Servant by Quentin Crisp. Also from RTB's, Francis Wheen has produced this book, How Mumbo-Jumbo Conquered the World. Hope the lighting's not too harsh on here. It's getting even worse. Sorry about this. It will look dramatic, but I'm not sure how well it is in conveying information. Now, this book is about 15 years old, and Francis Wheen, I only have a bare minimum of idea of who he is. I have heard the name. I believe he's taken part in a number of the BBC panel game programs which I used to listen to. remember him having quite a witty repartee with the others on those panels. And this book basically looks at cults, beliefs, religion, self-help manuals, all the mumbo-jumbo stuff in our lives, and how most of it is apparently a lot of bullshit, and he has a bit of a rage about it in this book. I've seen mixed reviews of it online. Some people don't really like the way he treats his subjects, but anyway, so it might be interesting. So that's How Mumbo-Jumbo Conquered the World by Francis Wheen. And lastly from RTBs was this curious little one, A Brief History of the Future. And it is apparently a history of people trying to foretell the future, not in a psychic magic type of way, but in, futurists as they're called, the people who sometimes get paid to think about what the future is going to be like and what technological developments are going to happen and what trends occur. And this book basically looks at those people and how all sorts of things like that happen, go on, and the people involved. Another one with mixed reviews. Some people didn't like this book, apparently, from what I saw online. It is by Una Strathern, and not a name I'm familiar with. And so, futurism, business, society, all that type of thing. So that's A Brief History of the Future by Una Strathern. Okay, now from Mighty Ape, 3 new recent books. I've got a pile up to the ceiling of books I should be reading, but just not getting around to it. So likewise, this one is The Survivors by Steve Braunias. Now, Steve Braunias is a local New Zealand author. He kind of has a double life. He's sort of a witty, funny, comedic writer on society and culture and politics. And then he has this other side where he's kind of like a hard-bitten, I hesitate to say it, like true crime reporter, or looking into the seedier sides of society, and he's really good at that. And he's written 3 or 4 books along those lines, and he says this one, The Survivors, is going to be his last in those veins. He currently is quite a high profile because there was a high profile murder case, the Polkenhorn murder case, that has been going on in New Zealand over the last 2 or 3 months, and he was reporting on that case for one of the larger newspapers in the country, and his reports became essential reading for everyone, and apparently it's all put him off the idea of doing it. We'll see if he actually keeps to his word of that. He is an excellent writer. He has a great turn of phrase, description, and he'll interview the people in the margins of society, or like in this book it's people, the survivors, people hanging on in society, or what have you, a variety of chapters about different cases. Now, I've read a couple of his books along this vein. I think Missing Persons was the last one he put out, and that was very excellent. He kind of delves into a side of New Zealand which doesn't get promoted a lot. The actual real life of how people live on the edges of society. So that is Steve Braunias's The Survivors. Next up, I got from Mighty Ape, Bob Mortimer's The Hotel Avocado. Now, this is a direct sequel to the Satsuma Complex, which came out a couple of years ago, and I reviewed on this channel. You can look up that review. And I'm pretty sure at the time Bob Mortimer said he wasn't going to do a direct sequel, but here we go. Now, Bob Mortimer, you're probably maybe familiar with him if you're in the Commonwealth countries. If you're in the US or elsewhere, you probably don't know the name very well. I did do a bit of an introduction to him in my review to the Satsuma Complex, but briefly, he was a television comedian, along with his comedy partner, a gentleman called Jim Moore, who had the stage name of Vic Reeves, or a character of Vic Reeves. And in the 90s, they were like a double act who did a number of television surreal kind of sketch shows and then game shows, and they became part of the comedy establishment, if you like, and then had a bit of a fallow period. And Mortimer himself has had like a second life in the media in recent years. He became part of a very nice, lovely, gentle reality type series called Mortimer and Whitehouse Go Fishing, or Whitehouse and Mortimer Go Fishing, I can't remember off the top of my head. And that is a program which just basically follows him and his friend Paul Whitehouse as they go fishing in the various scenic areas of the UK. And this has brought him back into the fore. And at the same time, he had a health crisis to do with his heart. And that's kind of jump-started his career as a writer. He's written, like I said, the Satsuma Complex. He wrote a memoir autobiography called And Away, which by all accounts is excellent, which I have purchased a couple of years ago but still haven't read. And now he has returned to the character of Gary Thorne, who was the main character in the Satsuma Complex, with this one, the Hotel Avocado. Hopefully the sun is not making that hard to see. And basically, it continues the story of Gary Thorne, who's a mild-mannered gentleman in the legal profession and got mixed up with all sorts of things in the Satsuma Complex. And apparently now he's got a dilemma. Does he continue on with his job and where he lives, or go join his girlfriend who's just opening a hotel, the Hotel Avocado? And of course, calamities ensue. He gets involved in more dodgy stuff, and yeah, how does he get out of it? Now, the Satsuma Complex impressed me. It was like a first novel from Bob Mortimer, and along with all the gags and comedy that you would expect from Mortimer, it did have some kind of deeper thinking about the inner life of people and all that type of thing. It was kind of quite a good meditation on how people are versus how other people see them. So I expect he would continue that in this book. So that is the Hotel Avocado by Bob Mortimer. Now lastly from Mighty Ape is this book, which probably needs no introduction again if you're in the Commonwealth countries. This is Richard Osman, We Solve Murders. Now Richard Osman he was already a media star, but he became a novelist, writing these gentle, cozy crime thrillers. He basically more or less invented the genre in the last few years with his Thursday Murder Club books. And he wrote 4 of those, then he stepped back from them and said he wanted to do something else, and this is the result, a start of a new series, We Solve Murders, about a father and daughter crime-solving team. And apparently the canvas is a bit larger this time. The Thursday Murder Club books basically stuck around a retirement home in the local environs. This has more of a global scale apparently, and everyone's raving about this one already. It's the best seller in England for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And yeah, I'll be keen to see if he can continue the magic. So that is We Solve Murders by Richard Osman. Okay, now, you know, there's some type of gag to be had here about saying you're waiting for a decent contemporary book on Nazi UFOs, Nazi flying saucers, and suddenly 2 come along at once. Yes, that's right. The old Nazi flying saucer myth is a perennial in books and magazines, and of course now online. There is this kind of desire with some people in some places who want to attribute this great advanced technological knowledge to the Nazis as they were in the 1940s, and somehow if they just had a little bit more time to bring this technology to bear, they would have chased the world and won the war and all that type of thing. You see this in aviation forums that are frequent. There's always what they call the Wonder Waffle type postings, where an artist's impression of some super jet aircraft which the Nazis were working on but never actually brought into service with, that's portrayed and shown how wonderful it would have been if they only had built it, and how the Allies would have lost. And it's a pile of rubbish, really. I mean, the Nazis at the end of the war were borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, from resources and manpower from one project to another, and they couldn't sustain it all. And for all their supposed advanced technology, we know what happened to them. And it just brings me to a larger complaint I have about things these days, that some people have become so contrarian with the political and social situation as it was, that they're willing to accept fascism and its chief proponent in the last 100 years, the Nazis, as an acceptable alternative to what we have now. And that is quite a disturbing thing, which I am finding more and more in my reading and my just communication with people. People think fascism and authoritarianism is a possible answer because they don't like the way things are at the moment. And, you know, the old saying, at least the Nazis make the train just run on time, and that seems to be something that's resonating with people now. I don't know why exactly people want that alternative when times are tough. Apparently people always turn to either fascism or communism as it were in the 1930s or what have you, and apparently some people think it's an alternative. And as we know, millions of people died last time we had to extract those type of thought patterns from the world. And I mean, free speech, great, but do you want to impose your ideas upon the rest of the population? And the only way to do that is by force and murder and death and destruction. And the way to get rid of those people once in power is the same thing. So that's my little political rant here. And anyway, books on Nazi flying saucers. So we have two here. This one, Nazi UFOs, Legends and Myth of Hitler's Flying Saucers in World War II, is by S.D. Tucker. Now, S.D. Tucker I'm familiar with from his articles in the 410 Times magazine, which I'm a subscriber, but I am 6 issues behind in my reading, so shame on me. And in that magazine he writes articles, kind of sardonic, sarcastic articles about politicians and other statesmen who have very weird ideas and beliefs and habits. And I'm not sure how that's going to translate into a book on Nazi UFOs. The whole Nazi UFO thing's been around for about 60, 70 years, with books and magazines, like I said earlier, the conspiracy theories that somehow the Nazis had developed flying saucers, blah, 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 blah. And people keep faking evidence and making things up and all sorts of rubbish. And this is like a history of all those claims and counterclaims and beliefs. And this is like an overall popular account of the thing, whereas this one, sorry, I'll just put that one down. This one, Flying Saucers from Naziland, is apparently the first volume in a series of books, which is more of a scholarly exercise in deciding, finding where all these ideas and conspiracy theories and beliefs come from. And it is by Maurizio Verga. I don't believe this was originally published in English, but it's been published again in English, and it's in this odd large format paperback, almost self-publishing looking thing. And yeah, so I think he does starts with an overview of these theories and conspiracy theories and beliefs, and then it delves into specific people and events involved. And this is only the first volume, which apparently only covers like till the 1950s, and he's projecting to do more. I'm not sure if it will get the sales to make that viable. It's probably a limited belief, but you know, all those newfound Nazi enthusiasts, maybe they'll flock to this book to find what their heroes were actually up to in the flying saucer world. Who knows? So that is Flying Saucers from Naziland, The Real Story of Nazi UFOs, Volume 1 by Maurizio Verga. Okay, so I think we're down to the last two here. So I frequent a website put up by Scorpio Books, a local independent bookshop, big name here in Christchurch, and they've had a website for the last couple of years where they are trying to sell some large format, previously expensive books for a very high reduction in price, for a great bargain usually, and you can order these books and either get them sent to you or go in there and pick them up. And I've got quite a few great books from there, you know, things that you usually would pay over $100 for, you can get like $30, $40, the great deals. And a few weeks ago they advertised on that site this book, Mythos, the illustrated story by Stephen Fry. Of course, almost name was slipped my mind. Now, Mythos was a book Stephen Fry put out originally in about 2017. I have the hardcover first edition myself, which I have never cracked open, and it is his retelling of several of the classic Greek myths, and his style, his wit and charm, and his way of explaining it to the modern audience. And sorry, my nose is running, as is tradition in these videos. And it was extremely popular, and he's gone and written at least 3 more volumes of similar stuff, focusing on various areas of Greek myth. I think he's done Heroes, he's done the Trojan War, and I think he's doing one on the Odyssey. Anyway, they were so successful that they've put out an illustrated edition. I knew this existed, but I'd never actually seen the illustrations in it. And I bought it when I saw it on that Scorpio site, thinking that maybe it would have like traditional ancient Greek type illustrations, but unfortunately not. It's some type of modern, I think it's CGI enhanced style. Not my type of cup of tea, usually this type of artwork. It looks a little half-hearted to me, but I guess if we have to have illustrations, it's not too bad. And anyway, it's the story of which counts, really. And I will be digging into this book, I think. You know, there's something perennially interesting about the Greek myths and mythology and the ancient world and in general to me, and it's just yet another area which I'd wish I was reading more about. Of course, there's so many demands on my reading that it is getting ridiculous. Okay, and lastly, while I was in there in Scorpio Books, I actually ordered that one online and went and picked it up in person because I don't live very far away from there anymore. I found this book, Going Zero by Anthony McCartan, which I had had on a wish list for about several months, and I finally found a copy in there, so I picked it up as well. Now, Anthony McCartan I've talked about before when I bought another one of his books, and he was a local New Zealand writer, and he became a screenwriter, and he's a big name in Hollywood now, and everybody wants his services when they go to make a movie. He kind of specialises in maybe biography, biopic type things, maybe, but maybe a little broader than that. And anyway, he's become very successful since leaving New Zealand. And this is a novel by him, Going Zero, as I said. And it's about a software company trying to market its super advanced AI or something system to the American authorities, CIA in particular, I think. And to test it out, the CIA and this company organised like a reality type show where if you can escape this all-pervasive tracking system, you get a prize of $3 million or something like that. And of course there's all sorts of twists and turns and people who succeed and fail at this, and apparently it has something to say about the persuasive surveillance of our modern society and the morals and corrupt morals and so on. I've seen it described as a movie waiting to be made, so if he's written it as a screenplay and expanded it into a novel, I guess that is pretty much what it is. So I've heard good things about it though, so this is Going Zero by Anthony McCartan. So I think that is the lot. I'm just looking over here, there is nothing else left. I hope this video looks good because the lighting doesn't look great in the viewfinder. What am I doing? What am I reading these days? I am reading Scarred for Life Volume 3. I'm about 200 pages into it, of a 700-page book. Most interesting for people of my age, I believe. It's all the books and movies and films and TV stuff that we watched as a kid, basically, and how inappropriate that seems now. And I've talked about this book and the predecessors, the preceding volumes before, and you can look that up on the channel as well. So that's Scarred for Life. I've also just finished reading on my Kindle. I've been taking my old Kindle to work to read at lunchtime, and I've just finished reading Some by David Eagleman, which is kind of a fascinating collection of short stories, all with a theme of how things might work in a possible afterlife. And there's a lot of humour, there's a lot of barbed tales in the stories, and it was okay to dip in and out of, but when I had time to read them, like several stories after another, they did seem to get a bit samey. And I have just started reading a collection of short stories by Bruce Sterling, writing as a Italian author, kind of Italian style science fiction, the conceit that he's really an Italian author who pretended to be an American Bruce Sterling. Yeah, it's complicated, but the first story in the book was really excellent. It just kind of took me back to the Sterling stories of the 90s, the earlier cyberpunk type stuff. But maybe he was more into social and relations between people and technology, and it was kind of like a big flashback to that. So I've been enjoying that. I can't even remember the book. It's called something like Black Swans and something by Bruce Sterling. Yeah, it's my research into this stuff before the video is terrible. So that's what I've been reading. Things are ticking along here, and I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll get back to doing reviews sometime. The old review pipeline has kind of crawled to a halt. What I've been doing is reading the books and then finding time to write a written review which crystallizes my thoughts so I can do a video review. And basically the part where I write the written review has not been happening lately, just because of the way I've been feeling and just other demands on my time and attention. And so I may skip the written review and just do like an omnibus review of all the books I've read lately on a video. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of doing, maybe not, or maybe I'll just go back to the old way of things. I don't know. Anyway, it is 10 minutes past 10 in the morning. I got up early this morning to try and catch the current comet du jour. The name Comet Atlas, something which I can't pronounce, apparently started to show brighter in the New Zealand skies earlier in the morning, about 6 o'clock. And it also was the start of daylight savings time here in New Zealand this morning, so I lost an hour of sleep anyway, and then I got up early, so I'm pretty stupid, aren't I? Anyway, so I'll leave it there. We'll see you next time.